Almost always when I'm overwhelmed, it's because I'm in a between state. I don't like being between things. I don't like the liminal plane.
In the last episode, Adam talked about how an artist participates in the culture, but culture is a two-way street. I mean, at least a two-way street. Maybe more like a semi-chaotic town square. And being in it changes your direction. It reorients you in unexpected ways. How is the architect of the town square affected by living in that town square? How does the culture in turn influence the artist? And one more question. What happens when a restless inventor like Adam turns his POV on himself? Thomas Edison once said, "I can never pick up a thing without wishing to improve it." And when asked to provide us with his biography, the first thing Adam does is to interrogate and then reinvent the very idea of biography.
I don't like the way in which we linearize each other's lives. Because if you look at me across this broad time scale, I wanted to work on Star Wars as soon as I found out that people worked on movies like that. When Cinefantastique told me that in 1977, and then I got to work on Star Wars in 2000, in 1998, 1999, and that looks like a linear story. But in the middle is all triage. It was all running out of money and family problems and divorce and kids and all sorts of crazy shit. And I count my blessings constantly. I came across a piece of writing that said, whenever you're mad about nearly anything, you should check your privilege. And it's because you're mad that something's not going the way you want it, and that's right there. There's privilege going on there. John Kabat-Zinn, who's the man that I think really brought secular Buddhist philosophy to the West with the mindfulness-based stress reduction clinic at Boston Hospital, has this wonderful thing where he says, just think through for a second how many moments of pleasure you have had in your life. Every sip of coffee that was great, every foot rub, every beautiful view. He's like, without measure. Like, just, it's inconceivable how many moments we get to experience. And like, when I'm upset about the fact that the thing didn't arrive on time, I try and keep that in my head.
Mm-hmm. Do you think sometimes the busy hands are a way to quiet a nervous mind?
A nervous mind? I mean, I definitely have get shit done-itis.
Mm-hmm.
I really like completing something. Like that's a thing for me. I also love refining things. We were talking earlier. I know Guillermo del Toro a bit, and I've gotten to actually like sit in his house and look at his notebooks, sketchbooks. And one of the things I learned is that Guillermo he doesn't just do a sketch and then move on and do the next sketch. He does. But then he will also go back to old sketches and add to them. Mm-hmm. And more than that, he'll add to the page to sculpt it. And I started allowing myself to go back to old pages in the sketchbook and add more drawings and add more framing so that each page became its own thing. And so for me, the sketchbook is this ongoing like source of completion that I get. Because I can just like, oh, okay, I don't know what to do. Let me just start from page 1. Oh, I could use a little thing over here. Oh, let me make another arrow over here. Let me bracket this one. Oh, actually, I think I can, yeah. And so it's like this, yeah, there is a way in which feeling like I got something done, finishing something and getting something done is this constant endorphin rush for me.
You ever use the creativity as a way to kind of get yourself?
It's constant. Yeah, constantly. I mean, just going into the workshop and thinking, I don't know what the hell to build. I will organize a shelf. That shelf to the right of the lathe, that bastard that's been staring at me for years. Okay, I'm just gonna pull everything off that shelf and 4 hours later, when I put everything back in, it's going to have a place. And that'll be what I'll do. I love kind of always having something to kind of polish in my head. Like, oh, there's a drawing of a gauntlet to do. Oh, there's a design of a thing to do. Oh, I'm going to collaborate with these guys to do that thing. Let's consider 5 ideas that we might do. Like, I always love having something to polish in my head.
Do you ever feel overwhelmed? And how do you
All the time.
How do you snap yourself out of that and try to remind yourself that this is play?
Well, that's the hardest part, because there's points at which I'm overwhelmed and I don't want to tell anybody because I asked for every inch of this.
Yeah.
I fought for it. I brought it to me. I built the fences and the corrals and I made it all work, and now I'm overwhelmed. Fuck me. But yeah, I totally do. And over the years, there's been this ongoing learning about the balance between home and work. And that balance is really important to me. And a lot of people who, everyone with a passion that takes them away from their home to go do stuff, I have often felt like I was stealing time from home to go do my fun work. And that's a terrible frame to work from. It's a scarcity model, which is a very United States kind of cultural thing. The scarcity model is one of the defining features of our culture, I think. But I have learned that I've seen myself be more distant from my family in a shop that was in the basement of our house than I've been able to be in a shop that was 40 minutes from my house. And it's not about where the shop is, it's about where my head is. So for me, part of handling being overwhelmed is to pay attention to where I am right now. And sometimes where I am, almost always when I'm overwhelmed, it's because I'm in a between state. I don't like being between things. I don't like the liminal plane. I want something to be done. I want a decision. I want to move forward with this thing. And when I'm forced to kind of sit in a waiting pattern for stuff, it tends to really unhinge me.
Yeah, I've also found that this is especially true of me, but I think artisans in general, it's so easy to, when we do something that we love and that we care about, and we have that kind of incredible focus or lack of awareness, that depending upon what you want to call it, to really grind down on the stone until you're making your shape into a groove, and it's easy to keep wearing on that groove over and over and not be able to get out of that groove.
Yeah.
Have you developed tricks to get out of the groove?
Yeah, deadlines.
To just finish.
Yeah.
But what if it's time to hang up the chisel and go home to dinner?
On that front, I usually when I am working, I'm always setting myself little artificial deadlines.
Right.
I'm always okay, I did 20 in the first hour. I think I can do 25 in the next hour, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then I'll think, okay, I got to be home at 5:30. Okay, I'm going to get this, and maybe I'll stop at 5:20 and I'll start picking up. And then I'll be pushing myself to my very edge of okay, wait, I think I can get this hole drilled and these 2 rivets in just before I have to leave. And that's my thing. And then once I get that, I rush on home. And there's a difference between rushing on home and just stopping and going on home. And that's a tricky balance. It is. Because I love, obviously I'm, the battles that we fight at the bench and in the creative work that we do, they feel like they have stakes, but they're safe stakes. And the microcosm of what we get out of those battles is really significant. And I love that space because it feels like a space I have control over. And that's a total illusion. But it's a very pleasant and healing illusion. And it's one that gives me a lot, but it's an illusion still. I love working hard. I love I love the camaraderie that comes out of every hand on deck to get the project across the line, and it can easily go too far. So in making Savage Builds, we were working with, it's a new show, so we're trying out lots of things. We're figuring out how to make the show, and we're doing 12, 14-hour days, 5-6 days a week.
Yeah.
And that's a real ass kicker. I was in my 30s when I started making Mythbusters. I'm in my 50s now. This is a very different engine with which to make a television show. Yeah. And I have to be more careful with it because there's only so much energy to go around. I achieved something on this shoot which I hadn't had in a while, which is decision fatigue, where you're just like, I couldn't even answer like bacon or sausage at this point. Please don't come to me with. There's a great movie called Showrunner, interviews with all these different showrunners about what they do, and it's a really fun movie. But there's this point at which Joss Whedon goes, everyone's, with this big smile on his face, he goes, everyone's coming at you, and they only have questions.
Have you ever seen with it 6 Days to Air, the South Park doc?
Have you not seen that?
No.
Oh. They decide they're going to do a whole show from script to finished, delivery
to air
in 6 days, and it's Trey Parker is kind of running the whole thing, and they've written and animated almost everything up to like the last 2 or 3 minutes of the show, and they still don't even know what the ending is.
Oh my gosh!
And it's like day 4, day 5, something like that. And the animation director and the other directors are pacing outside of his office, wondering what he's doing. And then they cut to inside the office. He's putting together a Lego Death Star or something. And he says, and he knows exactly what he's doing.
Yeah.
He's like, I am making a million decisions every minute. I need a second where the instructions are telling me what to do.
Yeah.
So that I can just get out of that.
Yep.
Do you have speaking metaphorically, do you have a scale model Death Star? What is your thing that's just for you?
I do a lot of things that are just for me in the end. For every thing that I film in my shop, I probably build 3 or 4 other things that I don't film. I build a lot of enclosures for the things that I love. So when I have an object that really moves me, it's often really important to me to give it a case that fits it, that protects it, but allows me to enjoy it. And that's a really broad statement because its execution is very broad. Sometimes, like for my Chewbacca mask that I have, which was made for me by Tom Spina, and it's from scans from Lucasfilm of the original Undermask by Stuart Freeborn with the mechanics that match, so it snarls like the real thing. This one I made into a box that looks like it was built by the Empire but repurposed by the Rebels, and it's got a window in the front and light so you can actually see Chewbacca's face in it. And so to me, that's like I've put the mask into an experience for myself, right? Like I'm looking for an interaction with the object, and I built the object to supply that interaction. The serial adventures that these strange lives afford us, of being able to dive into other realities and play around a bit, and play around on a serious level. I think about, I love this exchange. Someone asked Paul Thomas Anderson, is it weird that Daniel Day-Lewis doesn't break character for 2 months? Like, is that weird? And Paul Thomas Anderson goes, let me put it to you this way. If you could, wouldn't you? Like, what an adventure to do that, to get everyone to play along and you got to investigate this character at that depth. Wouldn't that be amazing? And I was like, he just converted me. Like, that is a brilliant question, because, yeah, I would. That would be incredible.
Right. Well, some people would probably say that the lengths you go to are excessive, in the builds and the detail work and that kind of thing. Whenever you're crafting something, people say, is all of that necessary? But that's kind of the full immersion is the point, right?
It's whenever you feel enveloped in the work.
Somebody told me, I don't know what study it is, but somebody told me that there was a study done a while back that artisans who create stuff with their hands, that they can immediately see the results at the end of the day, literally get more endorphins pumping through their brains than people who don't. And my experience of that is definitely
I think
true.
It's without going on to a whole other down a rabbit hole. I think that's central to our species.
Oh yeah,
giving form to substance seems to be what our consciousness is designed to do.
Well, it's problem solving, right?
Right.
It's that and problem solving and storytelling.
It's like, have you ever done a jigsaw puzzle? That little bit of ego gratification when you find any piece.
Oh yeah,
fits together. Just that little drop of ego gratification. Look at what I just did. Check that out.
It's kind of similar to somebody.
It's all the same color too, and I did that.
Are you ever frustrated by not knowing how something is put together? Is like reverse engineering a preoccupation?
It's actually a preoccupation and it's a meditation. Like I really enjoy sitting in a space and looking around and sort of running through my head all the materials that make the things that I can see back to their root materials. So I'll sit there and I'll look at the sound dampening tiles on the ceiling of Davies Symphony Hall and think about the shop that vacuum formed them, and I wonder what their QC was, how many failures they had, because clear plastic's a bitch. And that's like just everything comes down to people like coming back after lunch and putting shit together. And I feel connected to the builders of everything. And thinking through that is a way in which I experienced that connection. I didn't realize it in exactly that way until just now, but that's exactly what it is.
That's amazing. That's one of the tricks that the Dalai Lama suggests for, it's a meditation he suggests for interconnectedness, is to look at a object in your vicinity, say a sweater. He uses a sweater. He says, think about where you got that sweater. It was a shop. Someone put it on the shelf. Someone stocked it. It came from another place. A person drove it, where it was constructed by weavers and given dye by someone who chose that color. Made from cotton that was harvested in another country. And you just keep going.
But the dye
back.
came from some other country on a truck and a thing and a...
That's amazing.
And I mean, like,
and you just figured that out on your own.
Well, I'll go back and think about the atoms of the alpaca that birthed the alpaca that made this sweater.
Yeah.
One of the loveliest results of making Mythbusters was when Jamie and I when the show started to become popular, and we started to work with scientists and engineers who were at a high level in their career, because that's who we could reach out to once the show became popular. What we found was they treated us like peers, and that surprised us. Because like I have a high school diploma, and Jamie's major in college was Russian linguistics with a minor in library science. We have no business talking to the guys from Battelle about making a gun that can shoot a metal spike into a wall so Batman could like ride a cable. And yet, like, there we were, and they were treating us like peers, and I realized it was because I now understand it was because they saw in Jamie and I a simpatico engineer science based brain, and that's the first prerequisite. It's just to have that kind of mind to want to solve those kinds of problems, and that made me realize by the end of Mythbusters that I am a scientist. I am an engineer. Those things are not things that I don't get to say, simply because I haven't gone to formal education. And my education in some ways is terrible. but it's gotten me to where I am, and I have something to contribute, and I've come to understand that, and it's a lovely grace to feel that, to feel like that connection with makers of every stripe. I mean, I get to go to this conference that Jeff Bezos puts on called the Mars Conference, which is just like 200 engineers and scientists from around the world. I have no idea what I'm doing there, but I love like talking to my friend Chiara Mingarelli, who's like the other person that found gravitational waves. And while the first one found it using the LIGO detector, she and her team found them using math, like going through old data and being like, this is what we expect to find when we go through this data. If gravitation, oh, there's one. And they like almost the same year. I mean, very close to the same time they found this, and they're looking for ever bigger ones. And there's a level like, what's going on in their heads is something I understand. I don't understand the science of what they're doing. I mean, not at any kind of remotely granular level, but I understand the exercise.
I think something that you're talking about being connected to makers, throughout the world, throughout history, people, tend to think of it, well, now, because it's become this way now, that there are scientists that work in labs in very granular levels on very particular things, and then there are artists who do kind of impractical stuff, purely aesthetics. But the beginning of science, before it became a formal thing, was all ancient Greek artisans, practical people. You learn a lot by trying to make something work, failing, and then doing it over and over again.
Actually, Danny Hillis from Applied Minds told me, he's like, you really make me mad because you only ever have to build a working prototype of anything, and then you are done. He's like, that is the start of like, and Adam Stelzner, my friend at JPL, he was like, man, you do this in 2 weeks with like 40 people. He's like, I get $1 billion, 2,000 people in a decade, and they hope it works. Well, but the thing that you say about the art and the science too, right? Because, you take enough things apart, you start to understand how they go back together, which is why it's great to give kids your old electronics and a screwdriver. I mean, tell them that, they'll no longer shock themselves on TVs because there's no more cathode ray televisions. But I have long banged the drum that we do ourselves a disservice by placing art and science at either side of a spectrum. And when we even say, well, it's both an art and a science, we're saying those two things are apart. And I went through a lot of iterations on Mythbusters to figure out what my job was, because I didn't know. We got hired before, we kind of made the show as the show was going. It was our first hosting gig. We didn't know how to do that. We didn't know what it was. We figured it all out as we went, like you do. And in the end, 10 years in, I realized, oh, right, we tell stories. That's what we do.
And one of our earliest guests, Dr. David Haskell, he's a biologist, and he's making an argument that we've trained ourselves to believe that life is this atomistic thing that is determined by the cell. And he says, no, actually, no. Because if there's not movement and communication between cells, there is no life. So life is connectivity.
Oh my God.
And then he says, and if you take that out to a larger level, look at where I work, a university. How does it make sense to divide intelligence into departments when we come from the liberal arts, where we've made the mistake of making words that we use to categorize things within the mind as we've extrapolated that into being atomistic departments. Like, the original, Da Vinci didn't say, I'm going to major in rhetoric. Yeah. Right. It's funny. You have to learn all of those things.
And now people write dumb things on pictures of the brain, like math, language, like that.
Yeah.
Right. It's an old, I think it's maybe a Buddhist thing, mistaking the map for the terrain.
But it's a useful frame from which to test ideas and to think about stuff. But I realized that was our job on Mythbusters, was to tell stories. And being both an artist and a scientist, I realized, right, art and science are simply two different ways in which we tell stories about how the world works. That's it. The only reason we make art is to trade with each other these experiences about ways in which the world works. And science is the same thing. And one of them is arguably more rigorous than the other, but you can find plenty of outliers and exceptional cases. And one is arguably more emotional than the other. And again, you can find plenty of outliers and exception cases. And the second thing, I just came across this amazing article that says consciousness is the gigantic unsolved problem in physics because of this atomistic view. And there's just no explanation for it. Is matter conscious? We can't say, because we don't know why we're conscious. It's like every line of questioning about our sentience ends in a total mystery. And so they point out that we think of the sentience as the software and the atoms that put us together as the hardware. But the article makes this leap and says, what if the atoms are created by the perception of the experience? What if the sentience is the hardware and the matter is the software on which...
There are very serious physicists exploring this very
it's
idea.
a fantastic frame from which to look at things, because it's so on its head, and it's really bending my brain right now, but it's also super beautiful. Like it's starting like that. Our sentience is a total miracle, and I like to call myself a New Testament agnostic. I don't have much use for religion, but I like most of what Jesus said. Right. Yeah. And at the same time, I reckon, that my sense of mystery is our consciousness. It's a complete, amazing miracle.
See but that quality in you that just led you to say that, I mean, to me, that's what you almost apologize for your lack of education, but you can have 30 PhDs as an engineer or a scientist or an artist, and if you're not gifted with curiosity, I mean, curiosity is not something that you can teach.
In general, I have found the PhDs to be super, super curious. So when people say like, "Oh, do scientists ever get mad at the lack of your methodological rigor on MythBusters?" And I said, it took a long time before I realized the right answer to the question, because the answer is no. No, like nobody we ever visited was like, "Yeah, you guys are idiots." But we certainly got plenty of mail. And then I realized where that mail was coming from. And so I finally now answer. I say, yes, there is a group of people that get really mad about the lack of our methodological rigor. I would call them grad students. Yeah. They're looking for a fight where the stakes are small.
And also they're at that point where a little knowledge is a dangerous thing.
Exactly. But the working scientist, there's a wonderful Randall Munroe, the author of XKCD, comics and the books, has this wonderful one where somebody in the comic is complaining about us, and zombie Richard Feynman shows up to go, they're doing more for scientific literacy. And I love that zombie Richard Feynman has stepped to my defense in some fictional world.
That's amazing.
We hope you enjoyed this 3-part series with Adam as much as we enjoyed talking with him. If you could do us a favor and tell your friends about the show, or go leave a review on iTunes or a comment on YouTube, we would really appreciate it. Thank you. The Well is produced, recorded, and edited by Anson Mount and Brandon Edgens. Theme music written and performed by Jonathan Mayberg. Until next time, have a great time.